being said, there's an awful lot of information that can be accessed through this site. It's very clean. You know, where you've got text starting, well, that's 2 widths, isn't it? So it's, you know, 3 column, but that's going across 2 column. You see, to me, that font size is readable for me. I'm not talking about a visually impaired person at the moment. It's got nice contrast. Interestingly, and this is conversations I've been having with Joe, is this grid here is effectively a list. And I'm digressing in as much as I like to use this, but I use it with images with Joe's Total Blog, and that's what we've been working on. This idea, they're just using the text, but this idea that you can have these buttons of sorts to allow you to navigate. And, you know, they don't use a menu as such. And to me, this was the whole concept of Total Blog, is it allowed you to filter through in steps to the information that you wanted. The other one here. So this is the NHS, it's our health system in the UK. And there again, it's very clean. I think very easy to navigate through. But they're well designed. That's the other thing. The plans on these allow you to get to where you want. Now they have got a menu up here, but these are the main drivers, really. Nice clean site. Right, let's go to Bridgend. Now, JP and I, we went down to this college, obviously, before all this stuff started. And it was quite aggressive, actually, the meeting. JP obviously has a much wider remit in terms of, you know, disability and what accessibility means. You see, these annoying things here, this is quite annoying for VI people, and also can be problematic for screen readers. You know, nice, it's kind of a bit faddish in a way, the image behind and you scroll over it and all the rest of it, but does it give you the user experience? So I'm going here, they've got COVID right up at the front, I suppose that's relevant. This, I kind of quite like this idea, but you're getting back to this idea of the blog post or the blog list, buttons that allow you to navigate on. Now, so it has improved since we visited them. Is that loaded? No. But to me, it kind of starts to get a bit lost. I mean, yeah, okay, that's an A to Z, but there are better examples. Someone gave on RapidWeaver gave me one of these that they'd done in F6, I think. All in all, a bit kind of disappointing, but the .gov website is good, and the main reason that it's good is if you look underneath that, I'm in, I don't know how to do this, so I won't bother, but if you look at the HTML in that, it's very well laid out. And one of the words I've come up with, JP, is for the screen reader, it's the unnecessary noise. Because the screen reader is talking to you, if you've got loads of rubbish hidden away. So one of them, and I don't know why, I'm sure people here would maybe know, and I'd love to hear, is that light boxes don't work with screen readers. Screen readers see straight through them, which is a real shame, because one of the things I love about F6 is the pop-up menu, which I can't use because the screen reader just cannot read it unless I make it as a separate page. Right. Okay, Joe, I think we're at a point whereby probably, I don't know if you want to have a break and then come back, and then JP will do a JAWS demonstration. or do you want to carry on?
Why don't we carry on with the JAWS demonstration? I think that would be just fine.
Okay, JP, you happy?
Yeah, happy to do that. If you stop your screen share, and then I'll start screen share this end.
Okay. Right, that should be good.
Okay, so is my screen being shared now?
Yep.
And could you hear JAWS?
It's quite faint, but I think if you just talk through the way you navigate.
Okay, I'll turn JAWS on up a little bit. So we're on the .gov website. So as a visually impaired user, and similarly how sighted people skim read a site, you kind of want to have those flexibilities, I think, with some of the ideas behind the planning and the structures and the types of information you want to either present or signpost to. And just to build a little bit on what Guy said about alt tagging things, sometimes if you're using an image as a gateway through to an area of information where that image is going to exist, rather than perhaps alt tag the image and just have it as a redundant thing, it might be worth flattening the image and making it a link itself, so that when a screen reader hits it, it'll say da-da-da link. So the same as a sighted user would be going, oh, that's a button that I'm going to tap and press, or appears to be like a button or a gateway, a portal. You know, the link, the fact that it says the word link means that's going somewhere for the screen reader and the user using it. So there's a really good piece of constructed feedback there. So that's, I think, when alt tags are unnecessary. But then when you land on that page, if that graphic's reused and is perhaps there to pretty up the page, create some form of eye candy, or give some true depth and meaning to the information that's displayed on that page, then perhaps that's where that alternative text is going to be more appropriate, because it's the reuse of that image again, but it's then with the body of text that's very meaningful, rather than the, hi, this is my gateway type of affair on the former page. Okay. So yeah, just to come back to that point briefly. So we're on the .gov webpage. I'm going to start to tab onto the page. Okay, so I need to just change focus there.
Welcome to gov.uk. Same page link skip to main content. Visited link gov.uk. Link coronavirus left paren COVID-19 right paren. Guidance and support. Link the UK and N.
So I hit the page and JAWS started to go into a nice auto read mode for me, which is quite nice. But one of the first links that it hit was go to main content. Now that's quite a nice touch, I have to say, because if it's the first time that you hit this page, you may just want to read through and listen to it. The same way as a sighted person may just want to scan the page in its entirety just to get a feel for it. But if you're a returning person and perhaps you just want to jump to the main area and skip all the top end stuff that you know exists and you know what it already is, then that's a really nice link. So that's quite a nice, meaningful landing point, I think, you know, for me personally. I really like that. And as you then start to go through and read this, so if I wanted to read this, like a sighted person might move their eyes top to bottom, I can tab from item to item. And if we take the screen reader itself just for a moment, it's a very sophisticated piece of software. It can do many, many things. But at its basic level, if a user can just tab and touch the stuff on the screen, put the focus of the screen reader to all the bits on the screen, they can build up a picture of that screen, and it reduces the lack of expertise on behalf of the user and the screen reader, but they still get to have full access and immersion with your website. So I'll just show some tabs, and you may be able to see the frame and focus moving.
Search region. Welcome to gov.uk. Search button to activate.
So can you see that it hit the search button? And if I do a reverse tab, we've jumped onto the search button there, and JAWS so kindly told me that it was there. And if I wanted to access that, I would now press enter and I could type a search, etc., etc. If I keep pressing tab,
search button. List with 5 items. Travel advice : coronavirus left correct.
So interesting, there's a list box and it said list with 5 items, and their links onwardly to different elements. And again, this is perhaps what Guy was alluding to a moment ago when he likes the concepts of lists as well. However, one thing I don't like currently on this, and this site scored 100% in its accessibility, by the way. So again, accessibility scores, I think, are down to mechanics. They're not down to user experience per se. If it told me there that was a list of 5 links or 5 items, but it didn't tell me, didn't give me any detail as to the types of items it was, or just spat out the list for me. Because there could be lots and lots of lists available to me on a page, which there is on this one, which I can demonstrate in a moment. But if I hit the list, it would be nice to go list area contains and actually give me that information without having to then work through that list to read it. So in terms of 100% accessibility, perhaps mechanically the site is, but I'm not sure in terms of its potential. I think there's still room for improvements. But that's just a thing perhaps that JAWS needs to address as well, the Freedom Scientific developers. So I'll continue to tab.
Yeah, I don't know if it's because the volume is quite low, but just in case people can't hear, it is there in the background. But basically, the user is getting this computer voice talking to them the whole time.
Yeah,
so when Casey tabs.
Yeah, so when I tab, it's jumping to these main areas that are either a heading level or a link. So these are, because this is a text-based website, the developers here have gone to the trouble of both making a heading level, which is quite a commonplace method of navigation for a number of VI people using their assistive technologies. And also, links are an interesting way of doing that as well. So if I'm on this web page, if I wanted another way of looking at this, because this is built quite nicely, I can look at the heading, a list of just headings in a separate browser in the software. And I could also, that's really frustrating. Sorry, my attention keeps getting thrown up to notifications up on the Zoom menu bar. Sorry, it's a little bit distracting. So let me just get back to focus. Okay, so I'm back onto the main site. So if I just wanted to look at the headings list, for example, there is a keystroke. And as you can see, where the focus is and JAWS is approximately on the screen, it'll put me in that list position as well. Can everybody see there? So, and I can just quickly read through the headings, and this will give me a really nice feel for the web page. I can just jump out pull out that kind of coding and go, oh, great, it's got this, it's got this, it's got this. So let's say, I'm a visually impaired person. I want to go and get my driving license. I can just go straight to that heading level. And as you can see, there's a number to the end of the title, which indicates the level of heading. So in this instance, I think we're on a 3, and it's put me on driving and transport. And if I was to press enter, I'm in on that page, but I'll just jump back to the main page a minute. So another interesting way, what they've done with these heading levels is they've also made them links. Now, you don't always have to do this. And like I was saying to Guy earlier, working with those button concepts, if they're an image, rather than alt tag, they don't need to be a heading level as well. They can just be a link, sorry. And, we can navigate by links. And a lot of people jump around, visited links and used links on a web page if it's something they're going to use quite a lot, because it's just a more effective way of getting around the site a lot quicker. So I'll do a links list now.
List dialog, links list view, driving and transport, 7.
So in some of these instances, you can see that some of these headings are actually converted into links as well. So they've got a double behavior, if you will. But that, again, that's not always necessary. But in an instance like this, where there's a lot of plain text, it is really useful. So you get a double whammy in terms of your navigation. So it is worthwhile here. However, on one of the things that we came across when we've been working with buttons is you'll land on the button currently with the F6 stuff, and it'll go article, heading level, give the title, link, and then say the link thing. And then you try and tab again, and then it'll say the image, and the alt text. So what could be really useful on the F6 is, could you package it or make it available to the screen reader in such a way that it's just going to read the one item, but it sees all of those items as a singular item, maybe.
Yeah, Joe,
Maybe
this was
going forward.
yeah, this was this idea about we can show to a screen reader, and I asked whether it was possible that you could hide for a screen reader. You see, in a way that would do it, because then you just take away that information that just wasn't relevant. And if we have time, obviously, I can explain that a little bit better on one of the sites that uses TotalBlog and F6. Sorry, JP.
That's okay. So as we can see, where we're now into the instances, we're actually seeing real links as well, besides the heading links as well. So we're kind of taking advantage of text on the page that's been created into a heading level, but it's also been created into a link as well, alongside the other links as well. So I'm just going to escape from that a minute. So now I'm navigating by lists. So back at the top, in that COVID section, and we're leaving the UK and all that good news in black at the top, as you can perhaps see. And if I press the key to navigate on to the next list of links, you see we're now in the main area, and I think at the top it says benefits, but it just shouted out list of 6 items. Again, list of 6 items. Well, list of 4 items is very nice, and that's a really nice queue. But I think in this instance, to improve accessibility here, and you guys may have a workaround with the products you do, wouldn't it be great if it just then gave you the list? Why do I have to do extra work? Because if I want to go into that list, I've got to guess I'm on the right list for a start, and then use my arrow keys, perhaps, or tab. So now I'm just going through it with arrow keys to kind of work out what was there. But then I can go back to using tab, or I can use H keys to kind of move by headings. But if I wanted to jump around the lists for a quicker overview of chunks necessarily, that kind of is denied to me. But then arguably you could say, well, just pull up the headings list and read it all that way. But if it's there as a feature, and that's we can drive focus of this text-to-speech engine that way, why not make it useful or meaningful in some capacity? So again, there are other features so you can look at just basic form field instances on a website as well. So
search on gov.uk edit 1 of 5 to move search button 2 yes this page is useful button no this page is not useful button 4 there is something wrong with this page button no,
so it shows me some buttons,
search button 2 of 5
and it's got the search field, so some nice basics there that you'd perhaps want to get access to as well if you're having struggle finding it through other means. Perhaps using this shortcut key can get you there relatively quickly. However, for more advanced JAWS users, there are a number of other keystrokes that they could use to get to where they needed to get to. But again, we're assuming skill sets, and not everybody is born blind or has low vision or has access to these softwares all their life. Some people come to the game late through illness or just unfortunate series of circumstances. And, it's a big piece of technology to learn. And sometimes with the learning process, and this is then the other side of my story, when we're trying to train people and they hit websites that are difficult and messy, the frustrations that they're hearing because of unnecessary noise of JAWS just saying random stuff that's been left on the page that isn't visible to sighted people, but is code and tagging and information before you actually get to the stuff, the detail. And it's just so overwhelming, and they tend to then stop using the products, let alone continue to use your website and services potentially as well. So it creates these additional series of barriers. So there is this ripple effect relative to the choices that are made when it comes down to web design and accessibility. And I think that's hard to kind of demonstrate in such a short instance. I'd have to go to a very messy website, and I do have some current students that could perhaps demonstrate that. And if I was to show you how they interact with a website and the frustrations they get with trying to work out what to do, they just turn off the computer, and yeah, you would see that. So I think there's the web accessibility standards. It has its suggestions. However, they're not necessarily always applicable, as Guy has alluded to. And there are alternative ways to work around that. And I think by considering the plan in the very beginning and what actually needs to be known by a visually impaired person on a screen, what should the behavior of certain elements be? When is it useful to have heading levels? When is it useful to have a linkable item? And when is it not? And I think what a web accessibility software checker can't tell you is how to do that part for the user experience.
Yeah.
It can tell you all the mechanics. It can explain all of these other wonderful components and parts and go, oh yes, you've done all the bells and whistles, well done, pat on the back. But is it going to be useful, or is it a chocolate teapot? And I'll just pass back over to Guy.
Okay.
And finish there. Is that okay, Guy? Or would you want me to go on and do some other things? With
No,
this?
I think that's given, hopefully that's given people an overview in terms of how someone would use a screen reader. So this notion of being able to, I refer to it as stepping stones. So you